Alright guys, I'm back here with the 26 Aprilia RSV4 Factory 1100, and today we're doing stage 2 with the modified exhaust and our velocity stacks. But the story doesn't start here. It starts in the garage when I do the exhaust install.
All right, after wrapping up the exhaust install here, I wanted to give you guys a couple helpful hints when it comes to installing your exhaust or uninstalling the stock exhaust. So what the Acura instructions do not tell you is you do have to remove this lower fairing here, which is only 4 Allens right here, number 4, and there's only 4 bolts. This top cover will come off. You have to take off 2 C-clamps. There's one right here and one on the other side of this, and then push this rod through. Then detach this bolt right here that has a washer on the back end of it. The oil cooler will fall down. That'll give you enough space to drive a whole bunch of extensions up in here to get the bolts that are way up in there that you can't even see at the moment. I mean, it's kind of crazy how tight and crammed everything is in there. And then I probably would put cardboard against the radiator here to make sure you don't kind of hit that, because you bend those fins, your cooling kind of goes down. That also means this center bracket here comes off, and this will come off when you pull out this rod right here. It's attached through there, and it also holds your lines right here. Be careful in pulling off the exhaust, as shaking it back and forth can easily scratch the swing arm, as you see here. When you remove the exhaust valve, just make sure the cables that are running through the frame aren't hitting any wiring when you pull them out. They're attached to the frame with some clamps. Just pull right through those clamps and it comes right out. As far as the rear cylinders go, you have to use a litany of extensions to get in there for the stock system to get those 4 bolts out. It is very hard, but yes, it is possible. And on the ends here, what I did use just for this end right here, you can see bolt right there. And then on the other side, you can do the same thing. I put a ratchet wrench in there and kind of barely got 1 click out of it and just kind of barely got my way through it. And that got the 2 end bolts out. Now there will be a joint right here in the stock system. I kind of had to pry it free with a rubber mallet and a giant screwdriver, just kind of pry it, and it kind of came apart. Then the back fell out and then the front fell out. As far as installing the new system, it's pretty straightforward. They want you to put 1 primary in with a spring. It's 1 spring on each side of these ones, and there's 2 springs on each side on the front. So you get these 2 in, and then you get the fronts in. Now, surprisingly here, I've never seen Acura make a mistake except for 2 days. The first time I've ever seen Acura make an actual mistake. If you see that T down in there, see that T? That's where a weld's supposed to be for the spring. You can see there's no spring on the end here. I'm just hoping this is gonna work, because there's supposed to be a spring there that goes there, but they did not weld the spring flange right there, so I can't use it. So I'm kind of crossing my fingers this is gonna have an exhaust leak when I fire her up. But more to the point again, install the flanges, then you install the primaries, install the springs. I installed the other side of the bike. So if this is the clutch side, the brake side first, I put that primary in and sprung that first. And then I worked my way to this side and sprung this side. Now what you're gonna have to do here is invest in some decent spring pullers. It doesn't come with the kit, of course. Get some on Amazon. I'll show you the ones I used here. Use these or use something like these. It'll make your life so much easier to get proper and decent spring pullers. You can really kind of get in there, because you have to work your way through the bottom here and work your way up. And while this oil cooler is loose, you can push it all the way down through here. Just make sure you aren't bending any of the fins, and you can kind of work your way through here as well. And we also weighed both of the systems here to show you guys exactly what the weight difference is, because this bike weighs a lot in the first place. Now the system I did in 2 loads would be the muffler with the accessories and then the actual titanium piping, both of which equated out to 10 pounds total. So we're saving 19 pounds by switching from the stock system to the aftermarket system. And as we know, weight is the biggest enemy of this bike, with stock being 449 pounds wet. Every pound counts. So that's it for the exhaust install, and it's looking very good on the bike. More mods to come.
So now that we have the exhaust installed on the bike, it's time to get those numbers and see exactly what our stage 2 tuning does with the exhaust system. Let's check it out. All right guys, stage 2 with tuning numbers complete, and here we go. I'm comparing this right now, stage 1 versus stage 2, meaning stage 1 had our tuning 91 pump gas with no mods. Stage 2 here is gonna be a full exhaust system, 91 pump gas in our tuning. You can see the difference between the 2 pulls here. We're fattening up that mid-range a little bit here. We're getting quite a bit more power. It's 15 wheel horsepower right there and almost 10 wheel torque. And then up top here, we're making a whole lot of power as well. You can see we're making 7 wheel horsepower right there. and about 3-wheel torque right there. But across the entire range, we're making power here. We're not missing anywhere on this entire pool. Of course, blue being with exhaust and red being stock with tuning. And of course, we're seeing it right here, 202 versus 210. 210 is a very solid number for 91 pump gas in California. Now for the comparisons, I know you guys have been waiting for this. Let's check out that 25 Panigale V4. All right, guys, here we go. We have the Panigale V4 here in blue, and we have the RSV4 in red. Now, while the RSV4 is making a 2-wheel horsepower peak number better, we're seeing that V4 carry that RPM quite a bit further than the RSV4. Now, the power lines are kind of crisscrossing here. We're not really seeing any difference in power here. I mean, we are talking about a little low on here, but I don't know who's racing about 5,000 or 6,000 RPM up until about 7,000 RPM, where we're kind of just matching the same and then kind of crisscrossing here back and forth until we hit the red line of that RSV4. And then we carried even further with the Panigale V4. Now at the track setting right here, the Panigale V4, this is kind of a crazy power band right here. Yes, we're making a hair bit more peak on that RSV4, but in my honest opinion here, the Panigale V4 is going to be running circles around that RSV4 just simply due to that elongated RPM and power band. It's just a crazy power band right there. Even though the RSV4 is extremely respectable and actually making a peak higher number. But let's check out the S1000RR now. So here we have the S1000RR in peak. We're missing about 8-wheel horsepower. The S1000RR here in blue and the RSV4 represented here in red. But that shift cam BMW throws at these things, this is crazy power. I mean, 1100cc is nothing for this S1000RR, about 15-wheel horsepower right here that the S1000 is making over that RSV4. And 13-wheel torque, I mean, that's a lot of power. And like I said before, this is mod for mod. So both had exhaust, both had 91 pump gas, both flash. This is an apples to apples comparison here. The S1000R barely having a little bit more RPM right there. I think the RSV4 is a track bike better than the S1000RR, guys. Even up top here, we're looking at 10-wheel horsepower and 4-wheel torque. So S1000R light to light on the street is going to feel a little bit better, a little more torquey, but at the track, the RSV4 I think is going to do it. And as always, let's go ahead and check out that CBR Triple R for 2025 and see how it stacks up. All right, and here we have the Triple R represented in blue, and we have that RSV4 in red. We have that Triple R, of course, getting a little more RPM up top. That bike is a screamer. But here in the racing range, the comparison, over 10-wheel horsepower difference and 4-wheel torque. Even in the mid-range here, we're looking at quite a disparity between the power here. It's almost 25-wheel horsepower and about 13-wheel torque. And you can see the RC4 is just hammering this thing all the way to redline. Now the Triple R here does have the velocity stacks. If I don't have velocity stacks in the Triple R, it's not really a comparison. It's kind of not fair at that point. So I always make sure I compare it with the stacks. But overall here, I think the RC4 is taking it. Yeah, we do have a little more RPM right here. It depends on how you're riding the bike at the track. Perhaps it is comparable once we actually put on the track here with that extra RPM and this wide, look how wide this power band is, just massive on that CBR. Whereas the power band here is wide, but it falls a little bit short. And speaking of velocity stacks, let's go ahead and install the velocity stacks on our 26 RSV4. The stack install is very easy. I have a whole video of it on I believe a 2022, and it's the same video. There's no parts that have changed. Just go ahead and follow that video if you want to install the velocity stacks. And let's go ahead and get those velocity stacks tested. Now we've wrapped up velocity stack testing, so let's go ahead and see what we got here. Well, I'm comparing this to the 91 pump without velocity stacks, and it looks exactly the same. We're making 210 either way, right? Now, we're obviously mirroring a whole lot of the power band here, so why spend $300, $400 on velocity stacks? Well, velocity stacks aren't for the casual riders, they're for racers. And racers race around here. So why don't we just do this, and why don't we check out exactly what we're looking at here. Now at redline, we're looking at 3-wheel horsepower right there, 206 to 209. And you can see it's not tapering off. And we are just on a dyno here that has an air inlet that comes through the top here and is pushing air maybe 50 miles per hour or so onto here. This is made for more 150 plus mile per hour speeds. And this number will definitely be a higher discrepancy between the stock stacks and the BT Moto velocity stacks. You're going to see this carry a little bit more up top. That's all it's going to be. It's not going to be anything crazy. It's just going to carry more. That's all it's going to do. And you can see even here, I mean, when I zoom into here, you can see the real differences here. 2-wheel horsepower it's all kind of trading back and forth here. We're even missing 2 wheel horsepower right here. So it's going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But the meat and potatoes and why you get stacks is right there, right at red line basically. And that's where the roll racers are. That's where the drag racers are. That's where everyone really is. No one's racing down here. And usually when you do velocity stacks, you lose a whole lot down low and in the mid range, which you could see we're not losing anything down there. It's about the same everywhere, basically. We're just adding up top. So now that we've seen what the velocity stacks can do, let's go ahead and drain this tank, get some VP race fuel in here, and then we'll be testing max effort. Let's see what it does, guys. All right, guys, there is a new sheriff in town for 2025. This is the most powerful bike we've tested at 222 rear wheel horsepower on race fuel. And you can see I've also put the pump run up there. So 222 is the blue line. The red line is the 210 on pump gas. This race gas just does wonders across the entire power band, and the RSV4 responds extremely well to it. I mean, obviously, we're making more power everywhere, and at the peak power here, that's 14 wheel horsepower and 5 wheel torque. And it carries that pretty much across the entire band here. It's quite a different bike now. And of course, with the RSV4, you have to get a race map file that's gonna be separate from the pump gas file. This isn't like the BMWs where it's adaptive. Now let's see how this compares against the Panigale V4. So here's the Panigale V4, and while we are making a couple more peak horsepower, and just to remind you guys, the comparison here is VP racing fuel, velocity stacks, exhaust, which we have a slip-on the V4, and an air filter, of course, as well. So much more RPM, so much more power band. I think the Ducati V4 is just the track bike of track bikes for 2025. That's just my opinion. And this RSV4, I'm not gonna cut it short. It's an amazing, amazing bike. But if we're talking just what I'm seeing right here, on the track, the V4 is definitely a little bit better, even though on the dyno, the RSV4 reigns supreme. Let's go and see the M1000RR. Okay, here's the 26 M1000RR, and we're looking at a disparity of about 5 wheel horsepower. Again, similarly modded, same gas, velocity stacks, exhaust, everything. And the M1000RR just carries a little bit more, but you can see this is definitely a closer race here between the RSV4 and the M1000RR. Now, while the RSV4 does have this power all through here, it's missing all of that bottom end. Now, I've discussed this before in the M1000 video, but you can see the shift cam here still making more power in the RSV4, but it's not like the S1000R. So what they did is they traded a little bit of power down low. They got rid of some down here for the M1000R in blue, and they put it up top here. That's, in my opinion, for the M1000R, that's a good move because that's supposed to be a track bike, and now it actually competes with the RSV4 here. But we look at this stack drop right here. This is exactly what, this is from the airbox of the M1000R. You always see this little drop right here. That's almost 11 wheel horsepower just right there in that range, but then it kind of tightens up from there. About 5 wheel horsepower and a couple wheel torque. So overall, great comparison here. And let's just compare one more, the S1000RR. And here we are with our last comparison with the S1000RR. Obviously we have 11 wheel horsepower, and we're looking at that RSV4 in red and the S1000RR here in blue. The power discrepancy is pretty big. You see here 10 wheel horsepower red line, even further up here. The RSV4 really just starts kicking up here. I mean, it's moving, let's put it that way. But down low, that shift cam is really doing its work. That's 16 wheel horsepower right there. That's 13 wheel torque. So up to about 9,600 RPM, that S1000R is having a good day. So if you're more of a cruiser, not really tracking the bike so much, I'd probably pick the S1000R. It's a very smooth bike. But if you want anything for the track, I would say probably the RSV4, in my opinion. The RSV4 does have a great sound behind it, but that S1000R is so good on the street. The quick shifter, the way it feels, how smooth it is, it's great. And while the RSV4 is probably the smoothest of the V4s that I've ever ridden, it doesn't match a BMW down low at all. And that's gonna do it for our comparisons. Now we're doing quite a few things for the Stage 2 in the RSV4 to kind of maximize its power while keeping it safe, reliable, and retain the rideability of Stage 2 as well. So we were testing 25, 50, and 75% partial throttle pulls to make sure everything and the fueling was good through there. We did multiple pulls over and over again to test the heat of the bike because we actually lowered the fan temps on the bike. So the fan temps actually come on lower, just like with our stage 1, we leave it the same with stage 2. I did see one of our competitors, or probably the leading competitor for the Aprilia for us, went on and said that turning the fans on earlier is some kind of strain in the electrical system. But he does the same thing, except he doesn't turn them on lower, he just turns them on for longer. So either way, the fans are on, right? And we've been doing this for years and years and years in the RSV4 and no issues whatsoever. And in my opinion, turning the fans on for longer isn't as good as turning the fans on earlier, because there also is, and Aprilia owners will know this, there's a point of no return that the fans just cannot push enough air through the radiator, and it just is going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing till it's too hot to even run. Whereas with our system, it comes on earlier, keeps the bike cooler, and doesn't breach that point where it just tends to keep on heating. The basic idea behind stage 2 is for people that race the motorcycle or mod the motorcycle, because we have a full exhaust system on this with our velocity stacks. It matches those mods perfectly and maximizes everything you put onto the motorcycle. So now we see what this thing does in the dyno. Let's take it on the street, because we aren't just about dyno queens. Let's see the quantifiable numbers and see how it does on GPS better than our stage 1 file.
What's up, guys? I'm back post flash, stage 2 with the 26 Aprilia RSV4, and we're just going to get our stage 2 impressions here. I'm running at low speed right now, as you can see, and I'm noticing no difference between the stage 1 and stage 2 at low speed. It's still just as smooth. My throttle tip-ins are nice. The velocity stacks aren't causing any problems whatsoever, and we got the power we want out of the bike now. I just laid in the third gear, low RPM, just zoomed around that semi. The shifter still feels just as good. Nice and smooth going up in gear, nice and smooth going down in gear, and you gotta love those Aprilia downshifts. Sounds so good. Now the difference between stage 1, stage 2 isn't vast. It's more of a sense of urgency now you get with the throttle. It's just more responsive. The bike feels fatter in the mid-range, meaning more power. And of course, we're getting that top end we're going to test here in a second. We also now have it where this bike is flashed through our handheld now. So no more mailing out your ECU. That was what we did when we first dropped the tuning for the RSV4. But now that we have the protocol figured out, which was tested on this exact bike, and now tested with a couple people at home, we now have a solution for tuning at home. We mail the handheld to you. All you have to do is have an email and some Windows-based platform, and now you can tune your motorcycle at home. So I think when we do our 60 through 130, we're going to see quite a few different things that we saw on other bikes. For example, this bike is geared very oddly, and the way it makes power now is a little bit crazy. So I don't know if it's going to be very awesome on a 60 through 130, not like the best, but we'll give it our best shot here and see what it comes out with.
Alright guys, I'm here with stage 2 on the 2026 Aprilia RSV4. We're going to get our 60 through 130, 100 to 150, and possibly a top speed. I got too many notifications here. Let's see what she does. Better than the 4.7 we did with stage 1, and a 3.7 100 to 150 better than the 4.2 that we did on stage 1, with a top speed of 196 miles per hour. I know you guys saw indicated 196, but I actually had another run I did, because the first run the memory card got corrupted or something stupid like that, so I had to swap memory cards out, and this run I only got to 196, but the other one indicated was 206 and GPS is 196, so insanely fast. Probably the fastest bike we've tested so far in 2025 for a top speed, and that tells me quite a few things. I know in the M1000RR we did a 4 flat 60 through 130, and that was a little bit of VP fuel mixed in, just like right now there's a little bit of VP fuel in here with 91 mix. But why is this running slower when actually dyno's a lot more than the M1000? Well, again, it's due to a lot of other factors. There's the weight of the bike, number one. probably weighs 20 to 30 pounds more than the M1000RR as it sits right now, which weight is huge on this. Of course, the rider's exactly the same, so that's not a variable there, but also the gearing on this bike. The way it makes power now is absolutely crazy. It's in between gears. So I start my 63-130s in second gear, which isn't the fastest. I could probably do 3s if I went for first gear, but I do in second gear because I want to show you guys how our mid-range has been cleaned up with our pulls in the 63-130, not just a 63-130 best of. So I want to show you guys mid-range, low end, top end, everything in between, and that's why I start in second gear on all of our pulls. But this bike with this much power is in between gears. You want to start in first gear, but at 10% throttle right now as it sits, the bike goes straight up in the air. It's kind of crazy how much power it has in first gear. Then in second gear, it's kind of lagged at where I start about 50 miles per hour, and it could be a lot faster, and then it comes on at 9,000 RPM and it just wants to wheelie at that point in second gear. So I think if we change the gearing on this and put the gearing out quite a bit more, meaning we're going to drop some teeth in the rear of this thing, I think this bike would be lethal. 60 through 130, 100 to 150, and top speed. We'd go over 200 miles per hour. We'd be definitely in the 3s, no problem, 60 through 130. I think this has a potential of being one of the fastest, if not the fastest, roll race bikes there is. And that's saying a lot since we have that Panigale V4 that's killing everything right now. So we'll be doing a whole build series on this thing, trying to get it fast for roll racing. And I know a lot of you Aprilia purists are probably rolling your eyes back at home and sitting there like, well, that's not what Aprilia is for. It's for track riding. Well, I'm also going to do track riding. So we're going to do roll racing on this thing, see how fast we can get this bike, see if we can get the top of the pack. And then we're going to take this thing to the track along with the Panigale, and we're going to compare those two at the track as well. So not just straight line, we're going to throw some turns in. So we got something for everyone here. Now, as far as the stacks go, yes, we are making just a little bit more power up top, and that's all it is. But when you're talking about these small margins in roll racing, or if you're talking about that back straight at, you know, where you're trying to shave a tenth off, that little bit of power up at the top really does matter. And like I said, I can't duplicate airflow that's going 200 miles an hour. So we're going to see different power gains on actual pulls than we do on the dyno. And that's why we do these pulls, because it kind of is the final judge. Because if you're going to judge a stock bike, M1000, and this bike, you'd say this bike is better because it makes more power. But we just did the 60 through 130, and the M1000 completely beat this thing's cheeks everywhere except the top speed. So I've always tried to drive this home to people, but there's a lot more variables than just a peak number on the dyno. And that's why I try to show you guys the low end, the bottom end, the RPM. All these things are factors that come into play when the rubber actually meets the road. So our testing continues for the RSV4. It hasn't stopped today. We got to keep on doing more and more stuff. I got more parts to add. Some more videos are coming for this bike. It doesn't end here at all. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.